Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to be doing some router work and a little bit of scroll saw work on this Ain't My First Rodeo sign. Now it's going to be routed out on 12mm plywood, and the idea is to route out all the lettering, or basically all the white areas we can see, to a depth of about 3mm, and then we're going to inlay those with coloured resin. So there might be a red, a white and a blue and a brown resin for the at the top. As always for me, we printed our template out, we've stuck it down, we've got a nice bit of carbon paper underneath, and you just place it underneath like so. Once it's all stuck down in place, and I like to go around it with a biro or a pen. I just find that stands out better than using a pencil. Take your time, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, it's done. All part of the process for me. Some people can stick that straight to that and route over the paper. I did try it the once, just didn't quite work out for me. With using the carbon and trace method, you can obviously use that template over and over again should you want to. So there it is, all drawn out nicely. Nice bit of plywood, nice and crisp lines. We've certainly got no problem with that as regards to the transferring side of things. What I've done this time with the biro, it's just a bit different for me, is the routed out areas. I've literally just gone around, put little crosses on. You can get a pencil if you wanted to and colour them in. I certainly recommend that, because you will go away, come back, and you might start routing out this section here or here. But this is the bits that we're going to cut out with the scroll saw later. So once we've routed it all out, all these inside here, we will go around with a scroll saw and literally just cut it out, leaving a couple of mil little border all the way around. Same round here obviously, and that will be our little dam, shall we call it, for when we put the resin in. It will stop the two colours from mixing together. Now originally, if this had been pine or some other kind of wood, I would have lowered this back section, because obviously the first word is sat on top, but with it being plywood, it just won't look, the top section won't look as nice. So we're going to just do it as it is, and we've made our little barriers to go around each separate letter. It will look totally different again once it's all been cut out. Now for routing out purposes, as always for me on 99% of my little projects, I like to use these CNC bits, I'm going to call them. They do have a longer name, but we call them CNC bits. I will put links in on eBay and Amazon. They do have a small shaft on them, a 3.175mm. You can just see from there. They will fit a Dremel, no problem, but they obviously won't fit a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch router. So for that, you require what they call an adapter reducer collet. Just simply just a little tube like so. A couple of slits in the side, and you will slide your CNC bit, or any bit that's got a 3.175mm shank on it, shaft. That is now 1/4 inch, and that will fit your router, no problem. So we'll use that to do all our lines. Remember, I say in every one of my videos, we want to route out up to the line. This will be inset, so we'll come up to the line there. We don't route out on the line. You've got a small section like so. If you were to route on that line there and route on that one there, you're going to narrow that down, because obviously we're going down 3mm. So always up to your lines. If it was outset, you would obviously come up to the lines on the outside. So hopefully this will all route out the line work with that. Once you've done that, for me as always, little end milling bits. These are fantastic. I can't really fault these. Just remember, there's better bits out there, I'm sure. Personally myself, I've not tried them, so I can't give you my opinion, but there's some fantastic profile bits, liner bits, spiral up cups. Everybody, every router have their own little favourites, but for me, these little spiral bits will be fine. And we can get some slightly a little bigger. Remember, we've done all our lines, so we'll just simply pop that in there, and we will use this to route out all the letters. I've done it with pine before, I do apologise, with plywood before, and it'll come off really easy, and that is plenty. So for this old project, all we need is those two little bits there. Let's do all our routing first, get it all sorted somewhere in there, and then we'll look at the scroll saw side of things, and then obviously giving it a general tidy up. So let's start now. I'll work on 3mm. That is plenty for resin or paint work myself personally. I made a little gauge. There's my 3mm one, the number 2 as we say. I know that's 3mm because that's more or less flush on the wood there. So 3mm is plenty. Right, let's start routing this one out. Okay, so we've got the CNC bit in the router. We've used our little depth gauge. You can purchase these proper made ones off eBay or Amazon. We know that's set at roughly 3mm. We've done a little sample there on the outer section. Remember, we're going to cut this out, so that doesn't matter. And that looks just about deep enough what we need. Remember, with your plywood, it's in layers, so hopefully 3mm, a little gone down to about 2 layers. Leaving the rest there, plenty to play with. Okay, the only thing with plywood, I'm okay because I'm putting resin in this, so we might have to start routing this out, and there might be voids in here, and it might be not as nice looking underneath. So personally with plywood, I always use resin because it just covers a multiple of sins. If you're going to put paint in here, hopefully it's a better finish for you. And just remember with your painting, if you just put it in roughly, when you come to sand it, you will sand off these top veneers. So just be a bit careful. So if you're going to put paint in this, you want proper plywood, pine wood or some nice wood. That's not going to be affected by the different levels inside there. Okay, we'll start routing this one out quickly. Right, we've made it all the way round with that CNC bit. As you can see from that, plywood for me personally routes really nice. I've certainly got no issues with that. Like I said previously, the only problem you will find if you wanted to put paint in this, or once you've took that first couple of layers off, it's not as nice underneath. So it does have its issues, should I say. But as I'm using resin, it's not going to affect us. So we've made it all the way round. Everything's done. All those areas we've marked off with the blue biro. Now it's just a case of removing all those sections inside all the lettering, and there's quite a bit there inside the at as well. Now for that, as always for me on 90% of my videos, I use these little end milling bits, eBay or Amazon again. So it's just a simple case of removing your little CNC bit. You will get a lot more projects out of that, and you slide that into there. They do come without the barrier on now, but basically it's the same setup as before. We will pop that in the router. And you notice I've removed a couple of sections just so you can see. So we'll set it to that depth. Basically, just start removing all the letters and the outline of the act. Let's do that next. Okay, you can see from that we've made it all the way round with those end milling bits, no problem. I must admit this must have been one of the better plywoods this time round, but you can see a slight different coloration in there, but the rest of it's come out really nice. So far so good. Now you could leave that on there, or you could route out the background so it stood up, put a frame on there and basically just fill that in as you want to do. But we are going to cut this out. I like to combine the router and scroll saw, making nice little scrouter projects. So the idea, we're going to cut out all these sections here. I've literally just gone round with a pencil and no measurements, just freehand drawn the surround of the thickness of the little barrier one all the way around. Obviously we've got to get our blade into these middle ones, so we've got to drill little pilot holes. No doubt we will miss one on the way around, no doubt, but we can just go with the drill, drilling our little bits and always come back if we think we've missed one. So we drill all our little pilot holes, another one there, be two in there, and so on, and we'll just take our time and cut this one out first, and then we'll come with a Dremel little engraving bit, mouse sander, give it a nice tidy up. Now the blade for me, as always with all my projects, is a spiral blade. Spiral blade will be okay for this one because it's a nice good sized project, and with spirals, because they cut in any direction, you do not need to turn your wood. So we could pop the blade through there and let's just cut that out like so. Unfortunately with my old Draper scroll saw, it only takes pin blades. Spirals are pinless, so I have to use these adapter clamps. There's your actual blade itself without the adapters on, and you can see them teeth more or less, they are spiraled the full length of the blade. They're perfect for me. No, they're not for everybody. The other option is the pinless blade, ideal for this project because we do have some small areas to get into. There's one there, look, we're going to get into there with a blade and into there, so these pinless blades will be ideal. There's a lot of your professional boys, that's all they use. Personally myself, I just prefer the spiral blade. And on your cheaper saws, you get what they call a pin blade, pinned at both sides. This could be a little bit awkward for this one, because obviously we drill our little pilot hole in, we will struggle to get that blade in there because those pins will be in the way. So it's going to be pinless blades on this one, smaller one there still, remember. So if you're going to purchase a scroll saw, try and get one that takes pinless blades, just saves you using those adapters. And with all scroll saws, they want to feel smooth on the way down and rough on the way up. That way you know you've got your blade in the right way. So we will drill all our pilot holes first. I'll go around and mark off a few more like so. I'm sure we're going to miss one or two somewhere, and the one up there. Drill all our little pilot holes, and then we'll pop on the Pegas number 5 spiral blade and basically start cutting this one all out. You can see from that we've drilled, hopefully, all our little pilot holes. We've fed the Pegas number 5 spiral blade through the hole there. For drilling purposes, I actually just found a little drill that just fitted onto the end of my flexi cable, and that's ideal just for drilling our little holes. Personally myself, the bigger the hole the better. It just makes it easier for me to feed the blade through from underneath. But on this occasion we do have some really quite small spaces to drill. I mean, some of these we could have probably just left and not bothered at all, but we've made the hole now, so we will cut out a little section there, and I think there's one even smaller somewhere else, just up there behind the back of there. Okay, we've got nice tension, ping ping sound, we're all good to go. Let's start cutting this one out. Right, so we've made it all the way around with the scroll saw with that Pegas number 5 spiral blade. And you can see from that, it's cut out no problem. And the only thing you will find with spiral blades, you get these little nodules on the back, and it's just a simple case of a bit of sandpaper going around, and that's it, cleared off. So it might take you a little bit longer as regards to cleaning the back up than your standard fancier straight blades, but for me it takes a couple of minutes. There's certainly no issues with the actual cutting of the side woods themselves. They've come out really nice. The only thing with plywood, you might have a quick look round, and we've got lucky again, there's no void. Sometimes you might just find a little hole which may require a bit of filler just to fill it in, but we can't see anything there. Right, so we're just going to give it a little clean out just inside here. We don't have to concentrate too much on the back. Remember, we're going to put resin in here, But they're just little bits that we can tidy up. For me, as always, just cheap engraving bits. Like so. I'll get one with a nice flat bottom on it. And that's a simple case of we'll go around there, give it a nice tidy up around the full piece. A little mouse sander. Just to skim over the top to get rid of our pencil lines. Remember when we said about routing out, you can literally just still make out the pencil lines. Remember, always route up to your line, not on top of it. And then we'll skim it over. You get a little file, sandpaper. I think the sanding sticks out there, I saw the other day, first time. And literally just clear that back section like so. And a good bit of sandpaper at the front, just to get in, just take those little edges off. They're a little bit sharp, so we just want to go around and smooth it all out. So we'll do that quickly, then when we come back, we'll be on for staining and looking at the type of resin we're going to use. Okay, that's enough tidying up for me. So we use the Dremel with a flexi cable engraving bit just to get inside all these nice letters. Then a mouse sander just to remove all those pencil lines you can more or less see from there. And a good bit of sandpaper on the back just to get rid of those nodges. And they come off fine. So the back's done, the front's done. And we use sandpaper just to take those sharp edges off. It's worth the effort. When we put our resin in, we're not going to fill it to the top. We're just going to literally go, let's say, halfway up this 3mm, maybe 2mm high. Just enough so you can still feel that it's routed out. We don't want it to go flush with the project. Now you could spray this now, black, paint it black, linseed oil it. I'm going to put stain on this one today, just a nice dark stain. Hopefully when we come to put our colours in, whatever we use, blues, whites, reds, browns, they'll stand out nice with a nice dark surround. So nice little dark teak stain there. It spreads nicely, and it's going to be a lot easier than trying to paint or spray into these little sections in here. And it is just a simple case of putting it on. When I do this, I like to just do all the old project. Previously I would actually just do the side sections like so, and I went round and did this all the way round. Make sure you get those side walls. Then when I put my resin in, if the colour's not strong enough in your resin, you will see the darkness coming through. So now I'll just do the full piece, and I might go over this twice and so on. So give it a nice good soaking. Make sure we get those side walls, like I've just said. We don't want to put the resin in and then see the whiteness or the clearness of the ply itself. So we want to get all those side bits, and obviously all these bits as well. It looks quite dark when you first put it on, but as it dries, it's not as drastic as it looks. So I'll continue with this, go all the way around, do the full piece, and when we come back, it'll be nice and dry, and we will be on to the next stage. So there's all our staining done. We left it for a day and everything's nice and dry. You can see we've covered everything there. We've got all the sides done, and we've also popped a little bit on the back, just what leaked through as we were doing it. And we just rubbed it over with a cloth, and that's it done. All nice and dry and finished. Easy as. That was certainly a lot quicker than spray painting for me or brush painting. Now the next stage, we're going to spray some varnish on this. Personally, it will darken it down a little bit, give it a nice shine. It's just the way I like to finish my projects off, if possible, with a bit of varnish. Plus, because we are putting resin in this, and remember, if resin is not your thing, we could have painted this just as easy. Quick light sanding over, and then we painted the outer lines with your black or a bit of stain afterwards. So you can always put paint in if resin is not your thing to play with. So we're just going to give it a couple of coats of clear lacquer there. Like I say, it just finishes it off for me. We're not going to get much on the sides there. No way we're going to get into these smaller sections. But also the varnish will help seal this plywood. So when we come to put our resin in, hopefully we shouldn't have too many bubbles. I've not had a lot of issue with plywood, to be honest, but it doesn't give it any harm to spray some on. And we'll see the difference in this. I'll go outside. It's a nice sunny day today. But generally, as easy as that. We will pop a little bit on the side bits, best we can, once we go outside. I just find that just finishes off that plywood. And you can imagine that with a couple more coats on, just going to give us a nice shiny finish. Okay, I'll go outside, finish this off, and when we come back, will be time to fill in with our different coloured resins. Right, it's time for some resin. You can see from that we've got a nice shine from that little bit of varnish we sprayed on. Hopefully that's give it a little shine, plus also sealed the back section, so we shouldn't have too much trouble with any bubbles. And I've literally just got it resting on a nice chunky piece of flat wood there, just so I can lift it about and place it somewhere once we've filled it up. Now the resin today is Vista 1 for me. All your resins are 2-part. You will get A, your resin, and B, your hardener. Just look at your labels. This is what they call a 1-to-1 mix. So 1 part resin to 1 part hardener. By volume, exactly the same amount. So whatever you use of A, we're going to use the same amount of B. I just use these cheap plastic party cups for mixing with. They're ideal because they have little grooves on the side. So I've marked this one A, and I've gone up with 4 grooves. And obviously I've done exactly the same for the hardener, B, and we've gone up with 4 grooves. So it will be a simple case of just pouring your hardener into there, your resin into that one there, and I just mix the 2 together. They do say tip both into a 3rd container. It's not something I've ever done, and I've never had any issues. Once we've mixed all our resin up, I use these little plastic knife and fork sets. These are ideal because they do have a little groove on the back. Just get one out. And that's ideal for just, once we've mixed it all around, obviously, we can scoop it out, collect it in that little groove there, and just basically just feed it round as we go along. For colouring wise, this powders out there, inks, dyes. I'm just going to use acrylic paints, red, white and blue. We might try a little bit of white to that blue there. Not quite right up for me. But we'll have red in the letters there, white in the middle, blue, and then we'll find some colour to do the atting. Going to go nice and colourful on this one. So I'll put the resin in first. We'll mix the 2 together. And we'll pop in a bit of white. We'll do the white first for some strange reason. Mix it all in and basically just start filling this one in. As we do fill it in, and as we go along, we'll get a lighter with a little flame on, and we'll just skim across the resin. That just helps all those bubbles come to the top. And we also have a little oversized cocktail stick, and that's just to help us feed it along. Please, you want plenty of ventilation. Put your gloves on. Do not follow my example. Get the proper mass required for resin, and you should be okay. Some people can get quite irritable skin conditions with the resin. Personally myself, it's something that's never bothered me. So put your gloves on, nice mask and plenty of ventilation. Okay, I'll mix the A and B of the Vista 1 resin together, pop in our white, and we can start filling this one in. Right, there's our first batch of resin mixed. I'd rather mix small batches at a time, do 1 word at a time, instead of mixing a load, putting it to one side, and by the time you come to play with it, it's starting to go off on you. But you have a good half an hour or so, depending on your temperature. But read your instructions, it will tell you all about it. So there's our first one, our first bit of resin there mixed. I'm just going to pop in some white acrylic paint now. They do say work on 10% of paint per resin, but personally myself, I'll just pop in what I think I need. So it gives you a nice, good, solid colour. Give it a nice mix round like so. And you can let a bit out, give it a little test. If it doesn't look right, we can always add a little bit more. So there's that little scoop at the spoon there, look. We can drop in a bit in there, make sure I get the right word. And it will slowly find its own way about, but it's going to need a little bit of help. So we get our cocktail stick and it just feed it along like so. Okay, we'll fill this up, and then hopefully when we come back, we'll all be nicely filled. We've gone over with our lighter a couple of times, and then it's heading towards the finishing line. Okay, we'll fill this up now. Okay, so that's our last colour gone in black, and we've literally gone over the top, over the full piece, and that's just helped remove any of those little bubbles. And I'll come back in 5 minutes time and just give them another check again. But you can see from that, hopefully it's near enough for what we want. Any leftovers I have, it's just pure guesswork with something like this. I have a little mould like this, and I just top over whatever I wanted. Now that nasty brown on the end, I actually went for a mustard colour on the hat itself. We added a bit of brown and it just went like horrible. So we had to abandon that little one, but we'll use that in another project. So we went just straight black in the end for the hat itself. And that's it. This little project is finished for now. We'll come back in a good 24 hours, get a nice cover for it. I'll literally put this on, put that on top, resting on a couple of little plastic caps so it's not touching it. And then we'll come back in 24 hours and see what we've got. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. Now it's less than 24 hours later. Personally, I will leave this for a couple more days. Some resin manufacturers reckon it takes 30 days to fully cure. I think that's a little bit over the top, but I am not a resin manufacturer. So please read all your instructions. But you can see from that, everything's nicely set. It's all proper solid. And I've got no problem with that, with hanging that up today, personally, myself. So there it is. So it measures in at 16 inches by 14 inches across. We routed it out on 12mm hardwood plywood using those CNC bits just to all our lines with. And then the clear out was good old end milling bits. I will put links in the description to all these. Once we cleared it all out, we'll give it a nice little tidy up with the flexi cable with an engraving bit on. And then to darken the wood down, nice bit of dark teak stain there. And obviously we're going to have a bit of varnish on just to shine it all up nicely. Plus sealed some of that wood so it stopped all any of those little bubbles popping up. And then we laid it all with a Vista 1 resin. For me, one of my favourites. And the colours, just cheap acrylic paint. And that's it. This little project is finished. Thank you very much for watching.